Hey everyone. So, have you ever looked around and wondered why certain cities become these massive, sprawling tech hubs, while others are totally dominated by steel mills or textile factories? Well, spoiler alert, it is definitely not a coincidence. Today, we're going to unpack the invisible forces shaping our economy. In this explainer, we'll be looking super closely at the distribution of major industries and zeroing in on major industrial regions across the globe. It's like a giant puzzle, and we're going to figure out exactly how the pieces fit together. Okay, to make sense of all this, here is our game plan. We'll start with part 1, the building blocks of industry. Then part 2, rules of industrial location. Moving on to 3, mapping the global hubs. Then 4, India's industrial landscape. And finally, part 5, spotlighting India's major regions. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the building blocks of industry, from raw materials to your home. Before we get too far, there is a super vital distinction we need to make between basic industries and consumer industries. Basically, your basic or key industries are the heavy lifters of the economy. Think iron, steel, copper, and aluminum smelting. We call these feeder industries because they literally supply their products as the raw materials needed to manufacture other goods. On the flip side, you've got consumer industries. These are the guys producing the goods you and I use directly every single day. We're talking everything from sugar and toothpaste to paper, sewing machines, and fans. Understanding this split is absolutely crucial because it explains why these different types of factories end up in completely different parts of the world. Which brings us to section 2, rules of industrial location, or as I like to call it, the geography of profit. Okay, this is kind of shocking but true. Manufacturing sites are incredibly concentrated to maximize profit and keep costs down. Get this. They cover less than 10% of the Earth's surface? No way, right? It's vastly different from agriculture. To put that into perspective, if you look at 2.5 square kilometers of the American Corn Belt, you're usually looking at about 4 large farms. They employ a handful of workers and support maybe 50 to 100 people. But take that exact same tiny area of land, and you could easily pack in several massive integrated factories employing thousands upon thousands of workers. It's a totally different scale. So the big question is, why pack them in so tightly? Well, this extreme concentration relies on 3 main pillars. First up, access to market. And when we say market, we don't just mean people. We mean people who actually have the purchasing power to buy the goods. That is exactly why developed regions across Europe, North America, Japan, and parts of Asia are just these huge magnets for manufacturing. Pillar number 2 is access to raw material. Think about it. If your materials are cheap, bulky, highly perishable, or what we call weight-losing, meaning the raw stuff weighs way more than the finished product, like sugarcane, you absolutely must locate your factory right next to the source just to save on shipping costs. And finally, the third pillar, transportation. You need speedy, highly efficient networks to move your raw materials in and your finished goods out. Modern industry is just inseparably tied to excellent transportation systems. You can't have one without the other. Let's zoom out a bit for section 3, mapping the global hubs, or where the world makes things. Now, if you take a look at where major industrial belts are clustered globally, you'll notice they heavily favor temperate areas across North America, Europe, and East Asia. They are definitely not scattered at random. You'll see them mostly hugging seaports for easy global shipping and historical coalfields for cheap energy. These regions emerge because industries actually love to locate close to each other. It's called agglomeration. They share the benefits of being close, things like shared infrastructure and highly specialized labor pools. It's a real win-win for them. If we categorize the world's output, we see a really clear split between the older, heavy industries and the newer, emerging ones. It's basically the big 3 global industries that define the whole landscape. First, you have your older heavyweights, iron and steel. These are heavily concentrated in places like Germany, the USA, China, Japan, and Russia. Then you have textiles, which historically has been absolutely huge in places like India, Hong Kong, South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. But completely disrupting this traditional setup is the emerging information technology sector. Unlike the old heavyweights, IT is highly diffused, with massive hubs popping up in places like Silicon Valley in California and Bangalore in India. The old rules of location are literally shifting right before our eyes. And that actually brings us to a really fascinating pivot point. If these are the big global rules for the massive industrial belts, what happens when we zoom our lens all the way in on a single, vast and rapidly developing nation? Let's find out in section 4, India's industrial landscape, an uneven distribution. Just like we saw on the global scale, India's industries are not evenly spread out across the country at all. They tend to cluster in specific locations that offer those highly favorable locational factors we talked about earlier, markets, materials, and transport. This intense concentration has created 8 major industrial regions. We're talking massive hubs like the Mumbai-Pune cluster, the Hooghly region, and Gujarat. And beyond those giants, there are 13 minor regions and 15 highly specialized industrial districts spanning all the way from Kanpur down to Hyderabad. Time to get specific in Section 5, spotlighting India's major regions, placing a micro-lens on growth. Let's take the Mumbai-Pune industrial region as a prime example. This absolute powerhouse of a hub didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It actually started with a rich cotton hinterland and a moist climate that was just perfect for the cotton textile industry. But the real game changer? The opening of the Suez Canal back in 1869. That single global event provided a massive and credible spark to the growth of the Mumbai port. Suddenly, this regional textile hub was directly connected to massive European markets. Heavy machinery was imported, and soon after, hydroelectricity was developed up in the Western Ghats to power the whole booming industry. The idea spread like wildfire. On the flip side, let's look at the Chota Nagpur region. This place owes its entire existence not to trade routes, but purely to raw materials. Specifically, we're talking about the discovery of coal in the Damodar Valley, along with a ton of metallic and non-metallic minerals in Jharkhand and northern Orissa. Being right on top of heavy weight-losing minerals like coal and iron ore immediately birthed a heavy metallurgical giant. It drew 6 large integrated iron and steel plants straight to the area, including famous names you've probably heard of, like Jamshedpur, Bokaro, and Rourkela. Throw in cheap labor from the densely populated regions nearby, and you've got the perfect recipe for a heavy industry powerhouse. Now let's totally contrast those raw material heavy regions with market-oriented spots like the Gurgaon, Delhi, Meerut hub. This region is located far, far away from any mineral or power resources. So you might be wondering, why on earth is it booming? Well, it's because it thrives on light, market-oriented industries. It's all about electronics, light engineering, electrical goods, and recently a massive, booming software industry. These businesses are here for one simple reason. They need to be right next to the millions of consumers in the region who actually have the purchasing power to buy their stuff. It's pretty much a textbook example of the access to market rule in action. So what does this all mean for the future? As our modern economy shifts away from those heavily clustered, traditional, large-scale industrial belts and moves toward high-tech, diffused industries like IT and software, what is going to happen to the traditional manufacturing belts of our past? Will they be left behind? And crucially, as industries continue to cluster tightly to maximize their profits, how will they manage the severe risks of technical failures and hazardous industrial disasters that come with densely packed factories? It's this crazy geographical balancing act between profit, location, and safety, and it's going to define our global economy for decades to come. So the next time you pick up a smartphone or, hey, even just a steel frying pan, take a second and ask yourself, what invisible forces put this right in your hands? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today. Catch you next time.
Thanks for watching. For daily APPSC Group 2 study material and updates, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon.